first from Joyce. Swung on, line down the right field line, softly base hit. Broderick around third after DeBrule scores, and the rookie walks him off. Caulfield comes through.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Crank it, Jerry.
Welcome to Into the Wild, the official podcast of the Washington Wild Things.
What do you hear? What do you say?
It's the best sports podcast in the world. Wait, is that true?
If you're committed enough, you can make any story. I once convinced a woman that I was Kevin Costner, and it worked because I believed it.
Now, here's your host, Kyle Dawson.
Did you get the popcorn?
The 22nd season of Wild Things Baseball in the MLB Partnered Frontier League, the largest and longest running independent baseball league in the country, has just about arrived. The release date of this year, episode 5 of Into the Wild, is 3 days before the first practice and spring training. Tickets are on sale now for the biggest and best nights of the 2024 season. The promo schedule has been announced and added to, which we'll get to. You may be listening or watching while the Frontier League tryout camp and draft is happening. Essentially, things are, like a college kid at the pong table, heating up. This is Into the Wild, the official podcast of the Washington Wild Things, and we've reached episode 5 of the pod. I am Vice President of Baseball Operations and play-by-play voice of the Wild Things, Kyle Dawson, back with you to have a little bit of fun, and this time around to dive heavily into baseball. A hearty good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, friends, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time. If you missed our first 4 episodes, if you did, and you want to hear interviews and more with Kent Colvey, Tommy and Jay Caulfield, Zach Strecker, Nick Ward, you can always go back and watch or listen to those episodes wherever you are listening right now, cataloged and archived on the podcast platforms. We're available on most major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and Amazon Music, plus available in video form on the Washington Wild Things YouTube page. Appreciate you tuning in during this episode. Skipper of the Wild Things, Tom Vaeth, as well as President and General Manager Tony Buccilli will join the show as we get set for baseball. This episode serves as our 2024 season preview, and we'll be back with more throughout spring training as we go with a head of steam toward the season. And during the season, you can expect broadcast interviews posted as shorts on our podcast platforms. You can also expect nightly game highlights. Essentially, what that will be is a condensed post-game show with audio or video highlights and a look around the Frontier League. Those will be available bright and early the next morning after games. Plus, we will have our usual episodes throughout the season, making this your one-stop shop for all things Wild. So let's talk about this season a bit, but first we have to go back and talk a little bit to put to bed the 2023 season. The Wild Things seeking a return trip this year to the postseason after missing in 2023 and posting a 47-49 record. They were 5 games out of a playoff spot last year, and the Wild Things 8-9 in May, a rough June that saw a 9-17 month. That's 17-26 to start the year, and I'm no mathematician, but that means Washington finished 30-23 after that. Certainly there are games in all of the months, but really May and June, that if things go differently, we're talking about a different 2023 season. There's packages of games and moments in there that, again, if things go differently, we're talking about a different season. If you string some things together here and there, the club did start 6-1, oddly enough, before that very rough patch, but it's all good. It's in the past now. Washington did get some excellent individual performances last season. We've touched on those in the podcast here in the last couple of episodes. Andrew Czech set a new single-season walks record with 88 walks drawn. He's back for 2024, and after passing Kane Sweeney's 87 walks in 2017. Anthony Brocato, a postseason all-star last year. He's now with the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs in the Atlantic League. His over-the-wall power season finished second in a single season in Wild Things history, set a career best for him with 28 homers. Dario Friggio named Frontier League Pitcher of the Week twice, including after throwing a complete game shutout. He, Kobe Foster, and Justin Showalter, only the latter of which are not back with the team for 2024, spun complete game shutouts last year. Others were impressive in pro debuting seasons, which we'll talk about some of those guys as they return for 2024. And of course, Wagner Lagrange posted another 100 hit season, or 100 plus hit season. Really, it's 112 plus hit seasons because he had 112 last year, 125 to tie the franchise single season record the year before. In a Wild Things uniform, and Kobe Foster, top 5 in the Frontier League in ERA. Again, he's back for 2024. What's perhaps most intriguing about this roster as it shapes up, and again, we'll get into all of this throughout this preview episode and into spring training, is the potential and the high upside that this roster has. I think you're going to look through, if you look through some numbers, you're going to see some maybe elevated ERAs from some pitchers, but guys that throw hard, maybe they weren't used correctly in other places. The potential of those guys and the potential of rookies to take the next step. The potential of experienced guys to take the next step, whether it comes to leadership with this club or just being a lot better on the field, which is certainly possible. We'll talk about all of that with Tom Vaeth and Tony Buccilli, our GM. But rest assured, folks, the expectations remain high with the Washington Wild Things. The goal every year is to compete for a championship, all while hoping to move guys into or back into affiliated ball. We'll dive deep into this year's roster with Tom and a bit of everything with Tony and Tom. There are ways to follow along this year beyond this podcast and the missions we gave you just a couple of seconds ago. You can watch every game live and archived on Flow Sports, which is the official streaming partner of the Frontier League. Myself and Danny Erb will bring you those games, at least at home. I'll be on the road with the ball club, and our new group of interns will help to bring you all of the games on Flow Sports. And we'll have them on the road as well. Excited to get back up there and get going. Flow does require a subscription. Rates are $30 per month or $150 for the whole year, which gives you access for 365 days to everything that Flow Sports gives you. That includes pro and college baseball, racing, wrestling, basketball, hockey, and a lot more. But most importantly, every Frontier League event is part of that subscription, and all on Flow Sports. The Wild Things Baseball Network is also available on MixLR, the official audio home of our broadcast. You can download the MixLR app, that's MixLR, or head to WashingtonWildThings.com, WashingtonWildThings.mixlr.com. You can follow the page there, get notified when we go live for games. MixLR is free to listen to the entire year, and games will likely be archived on there as well. So super excited to get going. So without any more of me yapping, let's welcome our guests. First, the president and general manager of the Washington Wild Things, Tony Buccilli, next on Into the Wild.
Wild Things Park and Wild Things Games are the perfect places to host your company outing, party, family get-together, birthday party, and more. Check out the Goosebumps Smart Tech and Solar Solutions Suite Level, the EQT Pavilion, and the Pepsi Party Deck, and hit a home run for your outing or party. Bring between 10 and 80 people to one of our luxury suites, 30 to 80 people on the party deck, or 20 to 300 people in the pavilion. Food and beverage options, including buffet-style packages, are available. Call our front office for more information at 866-456-WILD. That's 866-456-WILD.
On Into the Wild, the official podcast of the Washington Wild Things, joined by, as promised, Tony Buccilli, the president, GM of the Washington Wild Things, in our 2024 baseball season preview. Tony, it's an exciting time of the year for baseball fans, and I know, the intention of this podcast is not to exclusively cater to them, but at some point we have to cater to them for the season. So it's right around the corner, and an exciting time of year for baseball fans.
I think this is something that a lot of us look forward to. There's months and months of planning, communication, players working out, kind of buying into what we're doing and what we're building here. And these are the moments that you kind of get to see. At the end of the day, it's always an unknown. So to actually see in person, on field, guys moving, pitchers throwing, how swings looks in the cages or on the field, those are the moments where kind of rubber hits the road and you know what you have and you know what you're lacking. And it's kind of the collective job to get it off on the right foot and to keep monitoring it going in and throughout the season.
Things are a little bit different now with Tom Vaeth than they've been in the past, and not necessarily in a bad way, but you and I are a lot more hands off, you especially when it comes to player procurement and kind of managing the roster. At the same time, Tom's bouncing ideas off of both of us, and you especially as the off season goes along. I don't know that people really understand how much goes into the process of building a spring training roster.
Yeah, it's super complicated. I think between league rules, salary caps, player availability, just the immense amount of contacts necessary to cover the globe in terms of available prospects and who has prior connections and all that stuff. So it's become kind of an all hands on deck, just as I've been doing more on the business and advertising and marketing and all the other aspects of the organization that kind of keep us strong and grow. Still, my roots are on the player personnel side. Still fortunate to have connections in the game, on field, and in office that allow beneficial resources to still impact the team. So definitely was probably more involved this year than last year just with transition. And so definitely want to be a positive influence where making sure we're achieving our goals, making the playoffs, being extremely competitive, and playing the way that I think the collective group wants to see the team play, and the style that we want to roll out there every day.
Yeah, from a purely baseball perspective, I mean, you and I are baseball guys. Obviously, Tom, the coaching staff, the players, they're baseball guys. And I don't know that everybody, and listen, this organization is not geared toward just baseball, but strictly speaking from a baseball perspective, and we talked about this with Tom Vaeth on episode 1. I'm sure it'll come up later in this episode when we talk with the Skip. Last year, unacceptable by our standards, and it got a lot better as the season went on. The beginning was not there. A rough, I think it was 7-19 or whatever the stat I gave earlier in the intro was in June. And listen, those things are going to happen in professional baseball. Sometimes you're just not going to have the right pieces, especially in indie ball. But bouncing back from that and returning to what the expectation here is, which is getting to the playoffs, like you said, being highly competitive, is something that this organization from a baseball standpoint is definitely striving for.
Certainly something that I think we shifted probably back in 2014, 2015-ish of the full-on commitment. Not that there wasn't commitment prior, but what those resources and commitment require to actually build that consistency year in, year out. It's certainly less controllable than probably affiliated because of the pipelines and minor league systems and having the players at a disposal. We are working with 50-60% turnover every year, and we have to go out there and compete with another 40 clubs that are looking to do the same thing. So yeah, any year, I'm always going to look at it, unfortunately, that any year you're not in a championship or winning a championship is unacceptable. That's just how I'm wired. But the first step you have to do is punch your ticket to the playoffs, and then let the series and the matchups play out from there. That's kind of what I've learned to accept. And I think this year it's a different feel than what last year's spring training was like. For good or bad, you had a lot of returning players that there were expectations, there were standards for, and we went in with what we had, and probably a little less overall bodies in camp than we do this year. And that can be good, that can be bad. We'll end up seeing what it looks like. I'm always the proponent. If I can bring in more competitive bodies and throw 3 guys into one spot and say, okay, one of you go win it. I would rather fail that way than fail with 1 or 2 guys and not going into a fully competitive setting, at least numbers wise. So interested to see what it looks like. I feel like we're deeper. I feel like we have more options in house. I think we have more options off the bench. The rotation will be structured a little bit different, but stylistically, I think there's a focus on how we want to play.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, I think competition, at least in camp, and just speaking from just a competitive guy's nature, competition in camp can be good for guys too. You don't necessarily want your 12 position players or your 12 pitchers being the only guys in camp and not having to compete for anything in camp, because I don't want to say it's complacency, but you almost have a little bit of complacency going into the season, where if you're battling for 2 weeks and then you're kind of battle tested going into the year.
There's always 2 sides of the coins of it. I've seen it either way. I've seen guys who've had horrible spring trainings that you question, how is this guy going to help us? His numbers don't match up to what we're seeing. And then he just tears it up in the season. We've had guys who've had great camps that it doesn't translate, or they're unable to kind of sustain that hot start. I think at the end of the day, you have to not let your eyes fool you. You have to believe in kind of the small details. But like I said, I'd personally rather fail on the competitive side. I'd rather have great options in house. I'd rather have 16 great position players and to say, you know what, this is very, very hard to get rid of guys, but this is for the betterment of the organization, and the guys have to understand that and roll with those punches. I think we have a group that understands that. I think they understand that we are going to have starter capable people on the bench, and probably we're going to end up releasing Frontier League capable or Frontier League existing pitchers. That's just how we want to do it this year. And at the end of the day, the players are going to earn their spots or lose their spots. And it's up to us of just staying true to the overall vision of what we want the team to be, and having the right personalities, the right leaders, and the right players in the locker room to help us contribute to a 96-game season.
For those that may be unaware of how kind of the process works, explain to people from a rules standpoint, the spring training. There's a cut down day to get to 28. There's a cut down day to get to 24. Obviously, you can do anything you want in between, but there's a certain process of how things work in spring training that maybe people aren't aware of.
Yeah, we'll start with probably a 34, 36 man spring training based on how the draft goes here this week. And we will get down to a 28-man roster on May 4th. I believe that's the date, or May 5th, and the Sunday. And then from that 28-man roster, we're required to get down to our open day 24-man on Wednesday, I believe, or that's what we'll shoot for Wednesday. So there'll be a lot of live competitions to get through there, inter-squad play, exhibition games, just traditional BP in and out, seeing some natural movement, seeing where guys are at physically going into the season. And there's obviously all the rules, the salary cap requirements that kind of all feed into how a roster builds. But I think fortunately this year we're not really constricted too much by a lot of that. With some recent rule changes, we have some guys coming in with 4, 5, 6 years pro experience that are still going to be considered pro ones or rookie ones just because of their age. So we should have some ultimate flexibility on our hands, and fingers crossed that allows us to have a deeper lineup, deeper bench, and hopefully we're in a spot where their 5 or 6 years experience creates a lot of value for us. It's not like rolling out a kid eyes wide in his first year of pro ball. These are guys who have a lot of a foundation under their feet.
There's a couple of guys just to speak to that point, and we'll talk to Tom about all these guys, but there's a couple guys that Tony's right is 5-6 years of experience. They signed as an 18-year-old international free agent, what have you. Maybe even in 2-3 years of experience at the affiliated ball level or elsewhere, PIO or whatever other league that are coming in, and they're essentially a first-year pro when it comes to classifications. Now those rules, they can be as they change in the ever changing landscape of professional baseball. That those things can be a little bit of challenging to keep up with, but also to kind of adapt your typical philosophies as an organization as to what you've been doing in the past with previous sets of rules.
I think that's always where the puzzle comes into place. That's how you find what works or what doesn't work. There are certainly staples and key figures that you're going to build around or build with. Just knowing a little bit more of their playing ability. And after that, it's okay, who kind of still fits our mold of how we like to play here. The speed power combo is something that we really accepted probably 8-10 years ago of the type of players that we wanted. The athleticism side, the speed power, the way playing on turf, extra base hits. So regardless of kind of their age or experience, we wanted to really tap into that skill set and put pressure on defenses and do a lot of damage with extra base hits and not really living and dying with home runs, but the capability to do it. So using that offensively and then kind of matching up the nuances on the pitching side of matchups and the competitive side of who's going deep into games on our starters and really the mentalities we built in. Whether you're a 6-year pro or a guy right out of college, like a guy like Kobe that we've had years ago, a mentality of kind of taking over a game and being that workhorse, that bulldog. You can't fake that. You can't create that. It needs the fit, and just that's where it gets kind of more important of sticking true to the type of people you want to bring in and not letting something misguide you just because of a need, but sticking with the personality and the makeup of what you value.
We've discussed a little bit of the promo schedule and stuff. Obviously, tickets are on sale now. Speaking from an organizational perspective now a little bit. Again, we'll dive into the roster with Tom Vaeth in just a little bit here on the pod. But one promotion that was added since we last had a podcast episode that was released, and there's been a couple of things sponsor-wise that have been added here and there, but May 11th should be a pretty special day for the fan base here in Washington. Hector Roa retirement ceremony, if you will. Nothing with a jersey retirement or anything like that, but a little video. He'll be here, obviously, the poster giveaway, a chance for, and not to point any fingers one way or the other, a chance for this organization and Hector and the fan base to kind of have a chance to have a proper goodbye, if you will, on May 11th.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy year for him with everything and the transition and playing in the Atlantic League and then coming back to the Frontier League. And it was just kind of a situation for him that I know he wants to be a Wild Thing. He wants to retire a Wild Thing. It's really important to him. I think I said in the article, brought him in as an 21-year-old kid and grew up here as an adult and formed roots here and still continues to give back to the area here and build relationships and make an impact in the game of baseball and in the community. So I know for him being able to be here, to be in front of the fans, to retire, it's never easy for anybody. It's an emotional, it's a tough time. Baseball is, for these guys, is all they've known and all they've ever really done day in, day out. And for them to step away, regardless if they played 1 year of pro ball or 20 years of pro ball, it's a monumental part of their lives that it's a chapter that they have to accept and a chapter that it's allowing them to look back on. So Hector's been a big part of our organization with memories and the new kind of the style of what we brought in when we first signed him and a collection of guys that were I guess, kind of an end of an era for us with his retirement. Those guys from those squads that were so much fun here at the ballpark and were a big part of our consistency of being championship caliber. The Streckers retiring and the James Harris retiring and the Kyle Pollacks retiring, that group, Hector was kind of the last of that bunch still playing. So as sad as it is to kind of see the end of that era and that group kind of play its course, it's nice to kind of be able to host him for this, put him in front of the fans, let people interact with him, honor him, do a fun poster that's a really cool design, but also celebrate all the memories that core brought for us for 6-7 years of baseball here in Washington. And I'm sure he's going to have a blast with everybody out here. And it should be a good time to kind of kick back and tell some old stories of there's so many running into the wall at
Travers.
At Travers, or I remember little videos of him dancing in a championship series. We made into a little video of him dancing during BP, and good swings, bad swings, long home runs, the unquestionable amount of strikeouts. It is what it is. Those are cool things to kind of reminisce on, and May 11th should be a nice way to kick off the season.
As the weather heats up and things get a little bit better spring to summer, I think that baseball is in a lot more people's minds, which is part of the reason, at least, why single game tickets don't go on sale until when they do. But those are on sale now, and now, of course, as an organization making a push to fill premium areas, suites, and even just get single game tickets, have youth associations out here, give back to the community. This is when really not the big push begins, but when people start to have baseball in their minds once major leagues are going, and this is right around the corner here.
Certainly feel that way, and our numbers reflect it. As we announce things and on a daily basis, we see the momentum really picking up. Certainly something worth sharing and making sure people prioritize. Our open exhibition game, we're only looking at it today. I think we only have about 300 or 400 tickets left for our free exhibition game for fans. New fans, old fans, come and experience us, see what we're all about again, or for the first time. It's a free opportunity to kind of sit out here and see what we're all about and the entertainment that we prioritize. And as we go throughout the summer and theme nights and one-offs and fireworks and kids' days and everything that we kind of lead with and where we really build the bond with the community, our goal is to continue to build on that momentum and raise funds, be a fundraising avenue for a lot of people, help support the community, create those memories for kids. It only kind of snowballs from there. So I think we're all excited to get going. It's long hours. It's always a wear and tear, but what we're able to do and the way we're able to do it, it's genuinely beneficial. And our players, I'm sure, are going to be really excited to play in front of fans. And hopefully the fans are excited to build that relationship with our players and with the organization and make more friends at the ballpark and just have a blast with us week in, week out.
All right. That's Tony Buccilli, President General Manager of the Wild Things. Up next on Into the Wild, the skipper, Tom Vaeth, joins the show as we continue to preview the 2024 season. That's right around the corner here on Into the Wild.
Are you planning a group outing with your friends, coworkers, or family members? A Wild Things game is an affordable and entertaining way to knock your next outing out of the park. Group rates for 10 or more tickets start at just $10 per ticket, with group accommodations of 10 to 3,200 people. Call our front office for more information at 866-456-WILD or go to WashingtonWildThings.com for more information.
Back on Into the Wild, the 2024 Wild Things season preview episode, joined at this time as promised by skipper Tom Vaeth. Tom, it's an exciting time of the year. We were just in the office and we peeked behind the curtain a little bit, talking about some things, and obviously that has happened throughout the course of the off season. But guys are starting to report. Baseball's in the air. It's an exciting time to be a baseball fan and to be a Wild Things fan.
Absolutely. It's you wait a long time for this day to come, and pretty excited to get this draft thing done and out of the way. And it'd be good to have all the boys on the field at the same time. And a lot of excitement in talking with these guys, up to this on the phone. And I think everybody's just excited to get together and get back out there as a unit.
We talked on the first episode of the podcast about kind of putting 2023 to bed, and we did that to some degree, but I want to circle back just for the people who are tuned in. Maybe they're tuned in for the first time, didn't hear that kind of thing. Obviously, the start last year, a little bit rough. The end of the year was good, and that's with a lot of the guys that are coming back for 2024. So I think that transition from being, having the rough June into having a pretty damn good July and August and into September to end the season, that's where you can kind of turn the page and look forward to this year on top of what else is coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it took us a while. We were fighting some continuity and fighting guys in and out of the lineup. We had a couple injuries early. We had a couple guys leave, were picked up. And, it just, whenever you're doing that, it's tough when you got guys revolving in and out to just kind of mesh and kind of come together. And, we had some things go against us early, even before people showed up for camp, where we lost a couple of arms that we had signed. So we had to take some flyers on some guys, especially some young guys that we didn't really know what we were getting. And it just didn't work out the way we had hoped and the way they had hoped. And so we were constantly trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And unfortunately, in the process, we dug ourselves a hole with our performance on the field that we just couldn't quite get out of. And so, once we did find some good pieces after the Major League Baseball draft, and some of the young kids were committed to now come and play, obviously it made us a better club. We did play a lot better going down the stretch. But again, it was just that hole that we had dug ourselves out of. We couldn't climb and get back to where we needed to be.
Tony and I talked a little bit earlier on this episode, for those that are listening or watching. The process that the off season is for you is a lot more maybe challenging than some places, whether it's in the Frontier League or other baseball places where the manager isn't heavily involved in the procurement process. They're involved, but not heavily involved. Whereas here, it's pretty much exclusively you for the most part. I mean, talk a little bit about for people that are unaware of how complicated and long of a process putting together this spring roster is.
Well, you start by trying to get an idea and a visual of kind of how you want this to look in the makeup of your roster, and kind of how certain guys can fit into that, and what you're looking for certain positions, and how you want to build your offensive lineup 1 through 9, and how you want your pitching staff to look, and the kind of arms you want to fill certain roles. So from that aspect, there's a lot that goes into it. You're not just trying to go out and just sign the best 26, 30, 35 guys that you can bring into camp. Listen, I could go out and find the best 15 pitchers that all right-handed, they're all 6'8", throw 98 miles an hour. Well, that usually doesn't work when you're giving somebody all the same look. And you want certain lefties to have certain roles that can fill matchups. And, offensively, it's great to think you can go out there and build a lineup that's 1 through 9. Everybody's going to hit 30 home runs. Well, again, that doesn't necessarily work because usually to get that, you're going to have to put up with somebody maybe strike out 150 times. And, I know the saying, everybody loves the long ball, but when the long ball is not there, it can create a lot of problems for you offensively. So, you want to have a really good mix there. And so, it takes a lot of work to a lot of calls, a lot of time on the phone, a lot of hours spent digging up, watching video of guys, just to kind of see how they fit the way you want to play and the identity you want to have as a team.
I think the other part of the complication, I think we touched on this in episode 1 as well, is and even things since then, roles change, guidelines change in terms of cap, in terms of roster rules. Obviously, the classifications are a little bit different this year, which maybe can be a good thing. But all juggling that at the same time as you're trying to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to procurement and getting guys here and doing exactly what you just talked about, that can make things a little bit more complicated, you'd think, at times.
Well, 100%. I mean, we all have the roster rules and the limitations that we have to work within. And whether you're talking about salary cap, whether you're talking about the actual classifications for the players, whether they're considered a rookie 1, a rookie 2. They changed it for this year. Now we're going back to the experience 1 level. So yeah, it cuts down everything. The vets were dropped down from 4 to 2. So again, there's some things that like you said, the average fan probably doesn't know that kind of goes on behind the scenes. I will tell you this, and as you are well aware, I mean, there's been way more communication this year between yourself and myself and Tony, and trying to get everybody on the same page of what we see and what our visions for this roster is. And not only going forward, but you have to look back in the past too and kind of see where your shortcomings were. And you're always trying to strengthen your club. And that never stops, right? It's even as good as you might feel today, as we're recording this. I mean, things could change in a heartbeat, mm-hmm. right? It's not only about the guys you have signed or the guys you have currently. It's just, you always got to be ready for what happens down the road. And if something should change in the next 24 hours, all right, well, what's your plan B, C, D, and E? And do you have guys in the chute ready, available to call? And, if you have to get them in here on short notice. And so, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, man. There's just, if you don't have good resources at at hand, then you're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the field staff a little bit. So Alex comes back, Ryan comes back. That's Boshiers and Whithorn, respectively. The same staff as last year. I think that can, despite what behind the scenes happens a little bit there in the off season, with Alex exploring some other things, us exploring some other things, Cam Roth landing the job full time and leaving coaching in a sense. You can almost go back to having a little bit of familiarity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think, with those two guys.
No. Listen, I've already had a conversation with them, and we all need to be better, all of us. And that starts right here with me. When you're the guy at the top, you have to do a better job that sets the example, it sets the culture, it sets the tempo, the tone for what you want to be and what you want to go, what you try to accomplish. So the fact that all three of us are back, feel like we learned a lot of valuable lessons that we had to learn, unfortunately the hard way last year, but we're hoping that those experiences, can only make us stronger and take what we learn from them and build going forward.
Let's dive into the roster a little bit, and I have every guy with some notes listed next to them, and I don't want to go through necessarily every single guy, but starting with the catchers, and one of the guys we'll announce on Wednesday. So if you're listening or watching this Monday or Tuesday, it has not been announced yet. Former Thunderbolt catcher Jonathan Vaeth will be joining the spring roster. So it's Vaeth, JC Santini from last year, people will know, and then Ricardo Sanchez comes in from Trois-Rivières from the Aigle, and he had a pretty good last 2 seasons. It's 80 RBIs combined in the last 2 years and around 250, 340 average no BP. Hoping to get some good competition out of those guys and step, at least offensively. We know they can defend, but offensively get a little bit more out of that position this year.
Yeah, I think, we'll start with JC. I think his second year as a pro, you're always looking for those guys to take that next step. Trained really hard. He was down in Texas working with a former minor league, really good minor league hitter, someone I'm familiar with and having coached against him in the American Association. He actually played with and against Bo when Bo was in Wichita. So I'm anxious to see the hard work that JC put in. I want to see it firsthand on the field. Having that first year experience, and, he's not going to be in that situation where the unexpected maybe gets too much for him. So I do think that'll be something that all of us can look forward to from JC, is just having a little bit better approach at the plate and understanding what these guys are going to do to try to get him out. As far as Ricardo Sanchez, now all I can tell you is when we did play them the last 2 years, my first thought when that guy would be up to plate against us is, who is this kid? Like, he's just – and whether he was playing second base, whether he was catching, he just always caught my eye with his enthusiasm, with the way he played the game. He played it hard. And that's kind of what I want us to be. I like having those kind of guys around. And then when I kind of dove into it a little bit more and dug around about him and talked to pitchers that threw to him, and they said they really enjoyed the way he caught them, the games he called for them, and caught with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. And again, that's what we want to be. That's the kind of people we want to have in here. So I know he's really excited about it. This is where he wanted to be. He was very upfront with me about that. He even shared a couple stories. I'll let you talk to him about that maybe during the season. Okay. There was a couple stories he shared with me of things that caught his eye about Washington and why he wanted to be here. And that got me excited. So glad it worked out. Little fun tidbit about Ricardo that the fans might want to get a kick out of is he's actually cousins with Yadier. So it's nice to have that kind of connection. I would assume then it's in the bloodline. And so I'm excited to see that. And Jonathan Wade is another kid who kind of caught my eye a little bit. Even though we didn't see a whole lot of him in his time with Windy City last year, but I know he was a kid that was very anxious to come into camp and compete. He was always impressed with the Wild Things and how we did our business. And so I think we've got three good catchers coming in for the very first time in my tenure that I think they're all going to push each other in that battle.
Jumping to a little bit of the infielders, I want to touch on a couple guys individually. First and foremost, obviously, is Czech. Andrew comes in. He is what he is in terms of a fan favorite now with the organization. He's been here a while. First year was 21, so he's got the walks record last year. He's got the power potential. We know what he can bring. It's about, I think, at this point, is there another step that Andrew Czech can take to be even a better ball player than he has been the last couple of years?
Well, I think it's just the natural progression of his maturity and the fact that this will be year 4 for him now. I think you saw that the step he took last year in the power numbers. Obviously, the walks were there. I know he wasn't real happy about his batting average overall. I know he felt he left some RBIs on the table. So I would say if there's a way that without kind of sacrificing the really good things he did last year, if he can add on, in those two departments, or the RBIs, and still keeping that batting average up, having those really good at bats when, he's not in a 3-1 count, when he's having to battle from behind. And so if that's the next step that can be with everything else, the good things that he brings to the table, then this should be another excellent year for Andrew going forward.
A big name that is gone, and I'll just touch on briefly from last year's roster, the last 3 rosters. Scotty DeBrol leaves at second base, obviously a high impact player, and we don't need to go into great detail on him, but a guy that was 5th is in terms of career numbers, he's up there in Wild Things history. Real good player, 5th in batting average, 5th in walks, 6th in runs. He's an all-star, 4th in hits for a 3-year career. I mean, the guy did a little bit of everything, and now you have to replace him, maybe not replace him directly, but you get a guy in Jalen Miller that's coming in here, doubles machine, the power's there. We know he's athletic. He can run a little bit. It's kind of a different player a little bit than Scotty was, but those are big shoes to fill at second base from what the fans have become accustomed to for the last few seasons.
Oh, 100%. And you're right. It is a different player, and that's kind of by design. I wanted to kind of go in a different direction. Once I found out Scotty was moving on in his personal life, and Jalen does bring exactly what you said. I mean, first and foremost, he's an athlete. A lot of speed. There's a lot of speed to Jalen's game. He's played at high levels. He's got some AA time, a couple years in AA with 2 different organizations. Had a very successful year production-wise in the Atlantic League, and he battled through some things. And so, first and foremost, we're hoping that he can come in and have a healthy year and have a strong workload. And I think we'll probably ask him to do some other things that maybe he wasn't asked to do last year with the teams he played for in the Atlantic League. But I know he's excited about this, and he was highly sought after, very much so in indie ball. And the fact that we were able to land him was a big feather in our cap. Kind of set the tone in the off season for what we wanted to do and build around. Time you can get a guy who comes in, he's coming off a year of 32 doubles, 12 home runs. I think he had another 9, 10 triples to go with that, and the fact that he stole 32 bases. Those are monster numbers.
Yep.
And so, like I said, to have that kind of guy who's a kind of a threat in all categories, there's no reason to expect. Not that we try to put a whole lot of expectations on guys, because expectations can lead to a lot of shortcomings, but there's no reason to think that he's not going to not only do that, but maybe even do a little bit more for us.
The other big name that's been announced in the last couple of weeks, Tyreek Reed, comes over from the Boston organization. Had a little bit of time with the Texas Rangers organization. He's a Rule 5 minor league guy. Another guy that's just kind of a big physical specimen that can hit the crap out of the ball and hit a lot of home runs and drive in a lot of runs. That's a guy who you hope to be, if he's clicking at all cylinders in the middle of your lineup and being a very much so impact bat.
You hope so, right? And that's, again, when you're digging into these guys' background, you try to talk to as many people as you can. And every single person that's either played against him or you have a couple guys that in their past have played with Tyreek as teammates. It was always the same thing I was hearing back, that this dude can hit balls with anybody, and on the power side, and how far he can hit them. And, unfortunately, injuries have kind of slowed his career down a little bit. He was, I don't know if the fast track is how you want to say it, but he was progressing really well. I mean, let's face it, this is a guy that's already been to 2 big league camps, one with each organization. And so there was obviously something there. He was doing a lot of things right, but the injury bug has kind of bit him a little bit. And so he's trying to work his way back through that. I think that's part of why we got him and why he was available. I think some teams were just wanting to see, hey, you got to go out and you got to prove you're healthy. And but I think he's going to be able to come in here and with the approach he has at the plate, he does have an advanced approach. And I think it'll just serve him better coming into a league like this, where I think the way they're going to try to get him out plays into what he wants to do at the plate. And so as long as he's healthy and we can get him back, again, it's been a long layoff for him. We're pushing almost a year and a half where he hasn't played. And so we'll try to be as patient as we can with him. I know he's been working really hard to be ready for this opportunity. And but if things work out, I think we might have found a hidden gem there.
A couple of younger guys in the infield, and I'll touch on Tommy and Carson for those that are familiar with those guys in a moment. But they come from affiliated ball. One being Daniel Harris, comes out of the Rockies organization. Really, really good college career between Eastern Kentucky and then I don't want to say Maine, Kentucky, but Kentucky. And then Alexander Ovales comes in with a couple minor league titles under his belt. These are guys that are young and experienced, and especially Ovales. We talk about the new role as a guy that's played 5 seasons in the minor leagues, yet he's a Pro 1 under these classifications because of the use. So those guys give you a little bit of pop and a little bit of athleticism that I think are good for competition and camp as well.
100%. And listen, the more guys you can get into camp that kind of have that high level experience and not only push each other, but can also push some of these younger kids who maybe just be coming out of college or that only have a year of indie ball under them, that they can help as they're pushing them. They can also help show them the ropes and help get those guys to teach them a little bit of things that they've already encountered in their career. So, as many of those guys as you can, and only strengthens your club. And I've been saying this, I know you and I have talked about this for a while, weeks, is this may be, and this is just what I'm anticipating. And I think this will be the most competitive camp that I've had or been able to run in the this will be year 4 now, right? So the 4 years I've been here, and but that was a priority in the off season. Was we needed to create some more competition in here and not just try to say, okay, I have a pretty good idea what we will be coming out of camp, and we'll just kind of roll with that. I want guys to be surprised and push me to make some decisions I wasn't prepared to make. And it worked out a little bit for us last year. Like Robert Chika, I know we haven't really talked about that, but that was, I'll be honest with you, I had zero designs on him making the club last year. But he pushed, and his performance didn't allow me to cut him or to not have him on my roster. And he just took that opportunity and ran with it. He did it all year. And so I'm hoping there's more situations like that in camp. And as I've been telling, Tony and I have been talking, and we just figure, hey, get as many of these really good kids that fit what we want to do. Let them go play, turn them loose. And that responsibility then falls on me. If I get really good players, and if I've got 12 guys that can start for anybody and anywhere, then it's on me as a manager to manage that playing time to where those guys are out there contributing for us.
You and I have had some conversations in the last few weeks, Tommy Caulfield and Carson Clowers, and we'll get to Chaka and the outfielders in a second. But those two guys doing a little bit of maybe things differently going into their first real full pro season, and getting to train and see how the body works and responds. And those two guys have, I think, pretty good expectations coming in for what they're maybe going to be able to do this year.
Well, yeah. And, Tommy came in and it was a time when we were really struggling to try to solidify the third base spot. Obviously, we all know last year, unfortunately, the situation with Ian Walters and how that kind of played out. And, so we weren't really sure we were getting in Tommy. But he came in, he played hard. He was really committed to winning. He was exactly what Nick Ward told me he was. Nick was big on pushing him on our way because they knew each other growing up. But Nick flat out told me, because you're going to love Tommy. He's the kind of guy you want. He's going to play the way you want to play, and he's going to care about winning as much as you do. And all that was 100% true. And I can tell you for a fact, and I think I've showed you the video, I think the fans are going to notice right away. Tommy worked his butt off. He's changed his body, got in the weight room. He spent 2 weeks with me after the season was over. It was him and I. We were the only ones left. And we were out on the field in the batting cage here at the park every day for those 2 weeks after the season. And he took what I asked him to work on. And I was very specific of what I wanted to see from him coming into this year. And to his credit, he's done that. And so that tells me he's serious about this. He's not only serious about helping the Wild Things be the best he can be, but he's serious about doing what he needs to do to hopefully get out of here and start his career in the right way. So very happy with that, with the work he's done. Carson Clowers is the same way. Carson was a little different situation, right? He had been in the American Association last year before we picked him up. But he was a long season for him. He went to school, Delta State down in Louisiana, and they started, I think, middle of January. And so by the time we got him and he came over here and started being an everyday player for us, and I'll be honest with you, and I'm sure the fans don't realize this, but that kid was running on fumes. And so I'm anxious to see what a fresh Carson Clowers can do, because he showed us glimpses. I know you and I were very impressed the first couple games out in Windy City, and just we can see the athleticism and the spark that he can provide. And let's face it, he flashes the leather out there for us defensively. So a fresher Carson Clowers, especially at the plate, if he can give us a little bit more there, combined with that great defensive ability that he has, again, we may have something special.
Yeah, a couple of guys that can slide from the infielders we just talked about and play a little corner outfield. But from an outfielder, strictly outfielder standpoint, you're working with Chaka, who we've discussed a little bit, Briley Knight, who we talked, I think, on the first episode about a little bit. Same way with Caleb McNeely, and Wagner Lagrange comes back. That's a guy with back-to-back 100-hit seasons and had a lot more power potential last year with the home run numbers and everything. That's a pretty good core out there. And in the end, who knows who makes the 24-man roster, but that's a pretty good set of outfielders to have, both with the bat athletically and being able to do some things out there.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any secret. I try to tell everybody, listen, I want deer in the outfield, man. I want guys who can just run and go get it. More we can help our pitching staff, way we can cover some ground out there defensively, then the better we'll be. So, again, I think everyone should be getting the common theme that's been overlaid through all of this is athleticism. I want athletes on the field, and I want athletes that are good baseball players. And McNeely showed himself to be that again. Small sample size, and that's why he's another one I'm excited to when he comes back into camp, just to kind of see if he can pick up where he left off. But a kid that showed that ability to be a really good athlete, play a really good center field for us. He showed some flashes of power with the bat. His ability to get on base in that leadoff role at the end of the season is hopefully something he can carry forward. But you combine him, Chaka, Daniel Harris is another kid who can run, very good athlete. Was at a tryout for the Diamondbacks back in the end of January, early February, and everyone and their brother called me or texted me right after and said can't believe you signed him. He was the absolute MVP of that camp. All he did his first 2 at-bats would hit 2 off the field home runs. So I don't know if I'm getting a home run guy. I don't know. But I do know the kid can hit. I know he has some athletic ability. He's excited to actually showcase his base stealing off. He hasn't really had a chance or play for somebody that's going to allow him to do that. So, again, the more athletic we be, the quick guys on the field, the more field we can cover defensively. It just makes us a better, stronger unit.
From the pitching staff standpoint, there are a lot more than the typical 12 or 13, 11 most teams will keep that are coming into camp. And that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing if things go south. But there seems to be a focus if people are looking into numbers, and there's been a focus over your tenure here of getting bona fide strike throwers in here, having some guys this year in the back end of the bullpen or even just the bullpen in general that throw a little harder, have that strikeout stuff so that, it's a little bit different, I think, of a mold than it has been the last couple of years. And some of those guys you're going to see inflated ERAs for one reason or another, whether it's Alex Carrillo in Mexico. That's very stiff competition. Tanner Probst, we're not sure how to say it yet. I haven't talked to Tanner yet, but him coming out of Empire State and Tri-City, and maybe his usage wasn't right. A guy like Frankie Giuliano, who's a lefty that maybe doesn't have that high velocity, but maybe another guy that comes in and had a bigger ERA last year that comes down if you use them right and carve out roles with a lot of these guys that are quote unquote slated to go in the bullpen if they're on the roster.
Oh, 100%. And again, it goes back to what we talked about with you got to have guys that can fit different roles, right? You can't just have cookie cutter guys back there. We had a little bit of velocity 2 years ago with Jake Pilarski, and then kind of when we added some of the guys like Isaac Matson and help me out here, the Zach Irwins at the end. And Lucas still has that capability, but we didn't have a whole lot of that besides Lucas last year. And I thought that was one of the things that we were lacking and just couldn't find that piece. Obviously, we didn't have a really good matchup lefty last year either. That was a problem for us, especially in our division. So those are definitely things that we wanted to address. We feel like we have. And listen, Tanner, and we're going to call him Props for right now. Tanner was really good on a really bad last year. He was sometimes asked to go 3 innings at a time, and then back and pitch the next day. And I think with a really clear-cut, defined role, you're talking about a guy who has 94, 95. There might be a 6 in there occasionally if we use him right and kind of keep him as fresh as we can. And you just don't see that kind of velocity from the left side. You throw that in the mix, and now you add a guy like Frankie Giuliano who comes from that 3/4 almost sidearm that can spin it against the lefty. We got to get that big lefty out. And let's face it, our division's loaded with left-handed hitters. We built their club, how Jamie Bennett built his club. And so we need that. And we really haven't had that lefty really tough matchup since BJ left us. And so that's something we always want to try to have, want to give guys tough looks. Excited that Lucas is coming back. Excited that we got Goose back,
Yep.
coming back. And Goose was really good for us. Not only what he did on the field, which was outstanding. He came in, he understood what I wanted him to do and what his role was, and he flourished in it. But he was great in the clubhouse, and he kind of he was the glue that held us together, and he's just so much fun to be around. That dry sense of humor he has, and he just keeps guys on their toes. And so when I found out he was coming back, that was a big boost. We got a guy like Nick McDonald that we've got acquired in the trade from Ottawa, who when I saw him pitch against us, he was another one that caught my eye right away. And talking with Nick, I don't think it was the right role that he was in Ottawa, and I think there's more in the tank for what he can do here. And then you add in some of the younger kids that we are bringing in. The kid that Tony played a big part in helping us sign, that Cleveland just released in Yuri Gervasio. He's another one who, with the right framework around him, put in the right role. I mean, this kid may be big things for us. So, again, we're talking about competition, and the better the competition you have amongst these guys, and the better the product's going to be, the end product's going to be when we take that field on May 10th.
From a starting pitching perspective, Kobe obviously back. Malik Barrington comes in from the Twins organization, another guy who had some success and some good numbers in affiliated ball. Jordan DiValerio, same way. But those two guys, at least guys, and we'll get to Frigio and Kirby in a moment, and some of the other guys that may be in the mix as starters. And I want to talk on one of the rookies that's coming in, but those guys shifting to starting kind of mentalities, and if they can go those longer distances and give you what you want, those guys are guys that had some pedigree in affiliated ball and come here and hopefully kind of benefit Kobe a little bit in a sense where he doesn't always have to be the guy that goes out there and dominates once every 5 days.
You're 100% right. And again, I'm going to take some responsibility for that. I didn't build and it all falls on me at the end. And I didn't give enough support to Kobe. The kids that I asked to come in and be starters last year, there wasn't enough pressure taken off Kobe. And I know Kobe struggled with that at times. Him and I had a good heart-to-heart this offseason. And so that was important going into this. And listen, it is every year, but more so this year was just try to find some kids that had some really good experience. Even if it's not a guy maybe like 6 or 7, if we're not bringing in a veteran, but at least guys that can go out there and you can pretty much count every 5th day that they're going to give you a really quality start. We didn't have a whole lot of that last year. So Jordan DiValerio, when you look into his stats and his background, I know you have, but when you break it down, I mean, when the times that he did start in the Red Sox regime, he was pretty darn good. He was really good. It's a 4-pitch mix that he has command of. Again, he's not going to be a 95, 96, but there's times when he can utilize his full repertoire of pitches that it off. And so when that 91 to 93, when you're throwing it behind a really good changeup, when you're throwing it behind his other pitches, his off-speed pitches, those have a tendency to jump a little bit, and just the understanding he has of pitching, that he understands of moving the ball around and the value in the location. So I'm really excited to have Jordan be a part and to pitch at the top of our rotation. Malik Barrington was another late signing for us. And here's a kid who, obviously the stuff is there. He's there. He has pitchability. You don't go from, he was originally in the USPBL, got signed by the Twins out of that. And then to go from there, and then all of a sudden you're pitching in the Arizona Fall League, which, and I don't know how much you've talked about that with our listeners, Kyle. Or people that don't know, the Arizona Fall League is the prospect league in minor league. You're the cream of the crop if you're asked to go play out there in the fall at the end of the season, and Malik was. And so obviously there's some stuff there. He was one that it happened so fast, you can tell. And usually you do this for so long when you're getting guys on the phone and you're trying to talk to them and you're going through the recruiting process. When a guy gets back to you right away and he's as excited as Malik was, you usually know you're in for something good. So we'll try to find where he slots best and where his stuff plays best for us. But you throw those 3 guys in now. And you talk about a kid like Daryl Frigio, who he was outstanding for us. He was another one that was running And he still went out and pitched his rear end off for us. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 different times he was pitcher of the week?
Yeah, twice. Yep.
He was really good at the end, and to see a fresh arm and a fresh Frigio come out for us, listen, there may be a chance we don't have that kid very long, but we're going to enjoy it while we do. And we hope that we can help him continue to grow and progress. And then the one kid I think everybody looks, and you and I have laughed about this for the last 4 months. I think the one kid everybody overlooks is Zach Kirby.
Yep.
You look at his numbers, 0-3, but I'm pretty sure all 3 of those losses were at least
quality starts or whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, he had a sub-3 ERA and a guy that went out there and did his thing, and it didn't necessarily, what you and I have talked about, didn't necessarily bother him that the team literally did not give him any run support other than I think 1 or 2 runs in 30 innings.
Well, I know for sure he lost a 1-0 game in Evansville.
Yep.
He lost another 1-0 or a 2-0 game here at our place at the end. And listen, a lot of times pitchers they'll change the way they pitch, the way they they go about their business. And it's because it's really easy for them to lean on that excuse and say, well, what's the difference in what I do with my thing? I'm not getting any run support anyway. Not one time, never did that kid complain about anything. Didn't change the way he went out and pitched. He still competed his rear end off. And again, you're talking about a kid who his season at Loyola Marymount out in California, they get started earlier. The weather's not an issue for them. And so that was a long, long year for him. And so that more than anything impressed me so much about Kirby that it was a no-brainer that I was going to have him back. And you get a kid who just competes not only for me, but for the organization as hard as he did and generally loves being here. And yeah, like I said, he was a no-doubter to come back. And I just hope that these kids, we already talked about Caulfield and some of these other ones. I hope these young pitchers, Matt Dallas as well, have really worked hard to come in. You and I have talked. There's always that little bit of worry, especially with pitchers who don't. This is their first year not in college, right? So they haven't had someone telling them when to run, when to throw, when to get their rest. They're on their own for the first time trying to figure this out. So we hope they all come into camp in the best shape possible, ready to go and ready just to come out and dominate.
A couple other young guys just to touch on real quickly. Zach Grace, guy that comes out of college, a lefty, a little bit at Wake Forest, and Rowan, a guy with a K per 9 of over 11 in college. McLean Harris comes over from the Pioneer League and to complete a trade. And Hunter Stevens is a guy I know that we're both excited to see, a guy that can throw hard, had a little bit of a taste of pro ball with Gastonia last year. And then obviously the big one, and this is the one I want to touch on too, and I do want to touch on the other 3, but Kyungju Kim, guy that goes into college in the NAIA level and strikes out 324 batters in 219 innings. We talk about, I don't give a damn what level you're at. That's nuts. 324 strikeouts to 69 walks, a guy that's going to come in here and throw strikes and get guys out, it seems.
Oh, 100%. And listen, I don't know where exactly he'll fit, but we're going to try to do everything we can to make sure that guy stays around.
Yeah.
For nothing else, for the exact reason what you just said. I mean, you put those numbers into perspective, they're kind of mind-blowing. In fact, there was that one year, I know you and I, when we first saw that, we just kind of looked at each other and just our jaws dropped. Yeah. I think between his college year and his summer pro, it was 190 punch-outs. 100. That's ridiculous. So obviously, and listen, I hope this comes across wrong because I definitely don't mean it, but I've always enjoyed having or not even just having, but watching the Asian pitchers. Like Jamie Bennett's had a few over the couple of years. They've always had our number. And the Asian pitchers are so disciplined with their mechanics. They're able to repeat it. And they're taught for so young the value in actually learning to pitch, right? And so I've always kind of chased and wanted to have some Asian pitchers on my team. So to get Kim, who is South Korean, I'm really excited to have him and bring him into camp. I know he's excited about it, and I'm sure you'll touch more and let more of the our fans into his backstory. His backstory is amazing. So I don't want to steal your thunder on that. I'm going to let you talk to them about that when the time's right. But it's an amazing backstory about him. And I really do think that if he is able to make the club and he sticks around, I think he's going to become a fan favorite very fast. He's the sweetest kid on earth when you talk to him. He's so excited to get here. Yeah, he calls or messages me about every other day, and he's just, yes, sir. He just wants to get here and be a part of this. He's super excited. He's loved everything he's seen on the internet about not only our organization and the area, but the fans. And he's so appreciative of this opportunity. He wants to meet, and he told me, I want to talk to every fan. He tells me. So, like I said, I think when you finally get around to having the chance to talk to about his background and where he came from, and coming to this country speaking no English, trying to go to school to learn because it was important for him to do that, and to learn English as well as he speaks it in the process. I mean, it just speaks to the character of the kid. So it's one of the things that not only yourself, myself, the coaching staff, Tony, Stu Williams, Franny Williams, we want quality people here. It just speaks to the type of person that we're trying to get in to not only represent this organization, but present the fine people of Washington, Pennsylvania.
All right, we've been at it for a while, so we'll do this again throughout the course of the season. I mentioned earlier in the podcast, any interview with Tom that goes on the broadcast will be posted to these podcast platforms. And I guess the last thing to do here, Tom, is with the season right around the corner, just kind of give a message to the fans and what they should expect when they come out here on May 10th or 5th, if they're coming for the exhibition game.
Well, again, I hope they all walk with the sense of what we've already talked about is, that team's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be very athletic. They're going to be fast. Again, we may not have the team that hits 4 home runs a night, but we want to be a team that's fun, play fast-paced baseball, pitch it really well, play good defense, and just make it an enjoyable night for everybody. And more importantly, listen, we know we fell short of our goals. I was looking up at the banners that are out on the stadium now, and I really took a lot of pride in looking up and seeing division winner in 21, playoffs in 21, division winner in 22, playoffs 22. I don't like the fact that we don't have any up there for 23. So I want the fans to know that that's number one on our list. We're chasing it hard this year. We want to get back to where we belong.
All right, baseball around the corner, around this corner. We will wrap things up for you on episode 5 of Into the Wild. It's been our 2024 season preview on the show.
Become a bigger member of the Wild Things by joining our season ticket member family. With plans starting at $150, you can take your fandom to the next level. 13-game, 25-game, and full season plans are available, giving you the right to pick your games, reserve your seats, and be here for the biggest nights of the 2024 season. Call our front office at 866-456-WILD or head to WashingtonWildThings.com for more information.
All right, that'll do it for episode 5 of Into the Wild. Let's review some dates before we let you go. May 5th, public exhibition game, free admission. The lower level is quote-unquote sold out with free admission. Tickets must be reserved online. They're available at WashingtonWildThings.com. On May 10th, the Wild Things and the Schaumburg Boomers, the home opener, the opener of the 2024 season. Gates open at 6 o'clock, 7:05 first pitch. I want to be here for all the pregame festivities here at Wild Things Park. Some dates in between. We'll have some podcast content released as well. A big reminder to subscribe and follow this podcast on the various platforms and such, and smash that bell to get notified when we drop content. Of course, in the meantime, you can get subscribed to us on MixLR at Wash Wild Things on the app, or by search, or head to WashingtonWildThings.mixlr.com. That's MIXLR. Or go to Flow Sports, the app there, and head to our website. Follow the various links available to subscribe to Flow Baseball to watch games all season long, not only on the Wild Things Baseball Network, but with teams around the league and all the content that Flow Sports has as well. Opening day is just around the corner. The 2024 season is upon us, Paul. The time is now. For now, thanks for listening, or watching the show. We'll catch you next time on the official podcast of the Washington Wild Things, Into the Wild.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.